à et les articles définis. To start out with, I just want you to take a look at some sentences. J'aime aller au parc. I like to go to the park. Thomas et Anne aiment manger au café. Thomas and Anne like to eat at the cafe. Annette aime nager à la piscine. Annette likes to swim at the pool. Je déteste jouer aux cartes. I hate to play cards. If you look at those sentences, all of those sentences have in common the word à or a form of the word à. À can be translated as at, to, or what I don't have written on here, it can also mean in. But we often want to use the word à paired with a definite article the in order to say to the. However, in French, there's mandatory contractions that have to occur. So when you want to say to the, talking about a masculine thing, à and le must combine to become o. So whenever you see that word o in a sentence, I want you to think of it as to the, at the, or possibly in the. À plus les have to combine to become o, this time spelled a-u-x. So when you see o, I want you to also think of it as to the, at the, or in the. A and la, as well as a and l apostrophe, do not contract in a sentence. So it's perfectly fine to have a la in a sentence and perfectly fine to have a l apostrophe, but you absolutely will never have a and le or a and le in a sentence. They have to have those contractions. So I want you to make sure you understand that you will never, ever, 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 ever have a and le in sentences. So I always tell people, in your notes, put a, le, put a, le, put a big no-no sign around it so that you'll remember you'll never write a and le next to each other and a and le next to each other. Instead, you'll use the contractions o, au, or o, aux to say to the or at the. So I sometimes think that this chart is sometimes helpful. If you have a masculine singular noun that you're saying to the or at the in front of, you're going to use o. If it's masculine and plural, like maybe you want to say to the parks, you'll use o. They sound the same, they're just spelled differently. That X is silent, unless of course the next word starts with a vowel, in which then you'll pronounce it like a Z. If you're going to a feminine place and you want to say to the or at the, you'll use a la in front of it. And if it's feminine and plural, you'll use o, just like you do if it's masculine and plural. Something to note, remember that when you use the verb jouer to say to play, when you're playing a game or a sport, you'll always use a and the definite article. So with jouer, you'll always say jouer au and then the sport, because you're really saying we are playing at the baseball. Sounds a little bit different when you translate it into English, but that's the right idea. So nous jouons au baseball. Baseball is masculine, so that's why we use au in front of it. So I have a couple that I want you to try. I want you to write these in your notes. Let us go over them in class. So to the pool, I want you to figure out what would you put in front of the word piscine to say to the. Consider the gender and the number of that noun piscine. Figure out what would you put in front of école to say at school. Now remember, in English sentences, we don't have to have that definite article, but in French sentences, definite articles cannot be left out. So that's why we don't say at the school necessarily in English, but we would in the French sentence. So figure out what would go in that blank in front of école. Also, in front of café, figure out what would you put in front of café to say at the café. Alright, so let me go back there. That's a couple of sentences that I'd like for you to try in your notes, and we'll talk about that in class. It's a pretty simple concept. We just have to remember that those contractions must occur. Au revoir les élèves.